Zixtara pressed her face against the cool glass of the transport ship window. Her breath made small clouds on the surface as she stared at the massive structure ahead. Nexus Prime hung in space like a giant metal flower. Its countless arms stretched out in all directions, each one bigger than her home city back on Colonia. This was her first time seeing the Galactic Council headquarters, her first time attending a real assembly meeting. The young diplomat had studied the photos and videos, but nothing had prepared her for the real thing. Ships from hundreds of different worlds moved around the station like busy insects. Some were sleek and silver, others looked like floating rocks. A few seemed to be made of pure light. Her mentor, Ambassador Krelvak, sat beside her reviewing data tablets. His old scales made soft clicking sounds as he moved. "Remember, young one," he said without looking up, "watch everything. Listen to everything, but speak only when spoken to." "Yes, Ambassador," Zixtara replied. She had heard this advice many times during the long journey from Colonia. Her people were new to the Galactic Council. They had only been members for 50 years. That was nothing compared to species like the ethereals who had been there for thousands of years. The transport ship docked with a soft bump. Zixtara followed her mentor through the airlock and into the station. The main corridor was enormous. The ceiling stretched up so high she could barely see it. Beings from every corner of the galaxy walked, floated, or slithered past them. She saw tall blue creatures with 6 arms, talking to small furry things that bounced when they moved. A group of rock-like beings stood perfectly still near one wall. Their deep voices rumbled through the air in a language she did not understand. Gas-based life forms drifted overhead in special containment suits. "Amazing," she whispered. "Wait until you see the assembly hall," Krelvak said. "Come, we must not be late for the opening ceremony." They joined the flow of delegates moving toward the center of the station. The crowd grew thicker as they walked. Zixtara tried to count how many different species she could see, but gave up after reaching 40. Every few steps brought a new type of being she had never seen before. The assembly hall doors were massive. They stood at least 100 feet tall and were covered in symbols from every known language. As they passed through, Zixtara gasped. The hall was a perfect sphere. Seats and platforms covered every surface, even the ceiling. Beings sat in groups based on their environmental needs. Water-breathing species occupied tanks along one side. Silicon-based life forms clustered near. Heat sources. 847 species, Krelvak said, seeing her amazement. Representatives from every known intelligent race in the galaxy. They found their assigned seats in the Colonian section. The platform was designed for reptilian species like themselves. The temperature was warm and the humidity was just right. Zixtara looked around at the other new species. The Colonians were not the only recent additions to the council. A deep sound filled the hall. It was like a bell, but deeper and more complex. All conversation stopped immediately. Every being in the hall turned toward the center, where a large platform slowly rose from the floor. The speaker of the assembly stood on the platform. Speaker Mothella was ancient, even by ethereal standards. Her translucent body glowed with soft blue light. When she spoke, her words reached every being in the hall in their own language. "Beings of the galaxy," she began, "we gather once again in peace and unity. As we have for 3,000 years, we begin with the sacred laws that bind us all." Zixtara had read about this ceremony, but seeing it was different. Every being in the hall, from the proudest warrior races to the most advanced technological species, sat in complete silence. Even the usually aggressive Chthonian warlords, who barely tolerated anyone, looked respectful. "The first law," Speaker Mothella continued, "stands above all others. Galactic Law 00, established at the very founding of this council, states that humanity shall be forever protected. No being may harm a human, no species may threaten human worlds. No force in this galaxy may bring violence to the human race." The speaker paused. In that pause, Zixtara felt something strange in the air. It was not fear exactly, but something close to it. She looked around and saw the same expression on many faces. Even Ambassador Krelvac looked uncomfortable. "The penalty for breaking this law is absolute," the speaker went on. "Complete species extinction, no exceptions, no appeals, no mercy." Chill ran down Zixthara's spine. She had read these words before, but hearing them spoken in this vast hall, surrounded by hundreds of species, made them feel different. More real, more serious. "This law exists not because humans are weak," Speaker Mothala said, "but because the alternative is unthinkable. May we never forget the lessons of the past." The ceremony continued with the other sacred laws, but Zixthara barely heard them. Her mind was stuck on the first law. Why did humans need such protection? She had met a few humans during her diplomatic training. They seemed pleasant enough, but nothing special. They were not particularly strong or smart or advanced. Their technology was average. Their military was small dot, so why did the entire galaxy promise to protect them? And why did everyone look so scared when the law was mentioned? After the ceremony, the regular assembly business began. Trade disputes were discussed, border conflicts were mediated, resource allocation was debated. It was all very routine, but Zixthara found it hard to focus. The question about humans kept circling in her mind. During a break, she approached. "Ambassador Krelvac, sir, may I ask you something?" The old ambassador looked at her with tired eyes. "What is it, young one?" "The first law, about protecting humans. Why is it so important? I mean, humans seem nice, but they are not the strongest species. They are not the smartest. Why do they get special protection?" Krelvac's scales turned a darker shade of green. This was a sign of worry among their people. "That is not a question. You should ask," he said quietly, "but I'm curious. Surely there must be a reason." "There is a reason," Krelvac interrupted, "but it is not a reason you want to know. Trust me on this. Some knowledge is dangerous." This only made Zixthara more curious. "But sir, if I am to be a good diplomat, should I not understand the laws I am meant to uphold?" Krelvac looked around to make sure no one was listening. Then he leaned close to her. "Listen carefully. I will tell you this once, and then we will never speak of it again. The first law exists because every species that has ever harmed humans has disappeared. Completely, as if they never existed." "Disappeared? What do you mean?" "Gone, extinct, wiped out. Not by war or disease or accident, by something else. Something that leaves no trace behind except empty worlds and warning beacons." Zixthara felt cold despite the warm temperature of their platform. "But who what could do such a thing?" "No one knows," Krelvac said, "and no one wants to find out. That is why we have the law. That is why everyone gets scared when humans are mentioned. That is why you should not ask these questions." Before Zixthara could ask anything else, an alarm sounded throughout the hall. Not the gentle tone that marked breaks in the session, but a harsh, urgent sound that made everyone freeze. Speaker Mothala appeared on the central platform again. Her usual calm was gone. Her glowing form flickered with agitation. "Beings of the Assembly," she announced, "we have received an emergency signal from the REM territories. A human merchant vessel has been attacked. 3 humans are confirmed dead." The hall erupted in chaos. Delegates jumped to their feet, shouting in hundreds of languages. Some species immediately began activating communication devices, calling their home worlds. Others sat in stunned silence. But Zixthara noticed something else. Mixed in with the panic and confusion, she saw something that made her blood run cold. She saw fear. Real, bone-deep terror in the eyes of beings who had never been afraid of anything, and she began to understand that her question about humans was about to be answered in a way she never expected. Speaker Mothala's voice cut through the noise. "All military forces are to converge on the attack site immediately. The Vorthek pirates responsible for this violation will face justice under Galactic Law 001. The word justice seemed to hang in the air like a threat. Zixthara looked at Ambassador Krelvac and saw her own fear reflected in his eyes. Something ancient and terrible had been awakened, and the galaxy was about to remember why the first law existed in the first place. The emergency session was called immediately. As delegates scrambled to contact their governments, Zixthara sat frozen in her seat. She had wanted to understand the first law. Now she was terrified that she was about to get her wish. The last time someone had hurt humans, entire species had vanished from the galaxy. Now it was about to happen again. And this time she would have a front row seat to witness the consequences of breaking the one rule that no one was ever supposed to break. The galaxy was about to learn, once again, why you don't hurt humans. Captain Jess Chun pulled herself through the twisted metal that used to be the corridor of her ship. Blood floated in small red drops around her head. The artificial gravity had failed when the pirates hit their main power core. Emergency lights flickered on and off, casting strange shadows on the damaged walls. "Maria, Tony!" she called out. Her voice echoed in the empty space. No answer came back. The Lucky Strike had been a good ship. Not fancy, but reliable. Jess and her crew had been hauling medical supplies to the outer colonies for 3 years. They knew the routes, they knew the dangers, but they had never expected an attack this far into safe space. The Vorthek pirates had come out of nowhere. Their black ships had surrounded the Lucky Strike before Jess could even send a distress call. The attack was brutal and fast. They wanted the medical supplies, but they also seemed to enjoy the killing. Jess found Maria first. Her engineer was floating near the destroyed engine room, her eyes closed forever. A Vorthek energy blast had burned through her chest. Jess closed her own eyes for a moment, fighting back tears. Maria had a family back on New Toronto. 3 kids and a husband who would never see her again. She found Tony in the cargo bay. The young pilot had tried to fight back with a plasma cutter. The tool was still in his hands, but it had not been enough against Vorthek battle armor. His body was broken and still. That left Marcus. Jess searched the entire ship, hoping against hope that her navigator had somehow survived. She found him in the escape pod bay. He had almost made it to safety. Almost. The Vorthek had caught him just as he was climbing into the pod. They had killed him for sport, laughing as they did it. Jess floated in the silence of her dead ship and felt rage building inside her chest. These were good people. They had never hurt anyone. They delivered medicine to sick children and food to hungry families. And the Vorthek had murdered them for fun. She made her way to the emergency communication array. It was damaged, but still working. With shaking hands, she activated the distress beacon. The message was simple and automatic. Ship name, location, and crew status. She did not know that her simple distress call would change everything. The signal traveled through space at the speed of light. It reached the nearest communication relay in 12 minutes. From there, it was boosted and sent to the next relay, and then the next. Within an hour, the message had reached every major world in the galaxy, but it was not just any distress call. The ship was registered as human-owned. The crew list showed human names, and the status report included those terrible words, casualties, 3 humans confirmed dead. The message triggered systems that had been sleeping for thousands of years. Deep in the heart of Nexus Prime, ancient computers came to life. Warning lights that had never been lit began to flash. Alarms that had been silent since the galaxy was young started to sound on the water world of Aquatica. Admiral Reefsinger was reviewing patrol reports when her command center erupted in chaos. Every screen turned red. Every speaker began broadcasting the same message in her people's clicking language. Human protection protocol activated. All forces report for immediate deployment. The Admiral stared at the screens in shock. She had heard of the Human Protection Protocol in Military Academy, but it was taught as ancient history. Something from the old days that would never be used again. Now it was real, and every ship in her fleet was being called to action. On the desert world of Sanzen, General Rockbreaker felt his stone body vibrate with the emergency signal. His people were slow to move, but when they did move, nothing could stop them. The message reached deep into his mountain fortress where the great war machines slept. Machines that had not been awakened in 1,000 years began to stir. In the crystal cities of harmony, The collective mind of the resonance felt the call like a sharp note in a perfect song. Their ships were not built for war, but they were fast, and their sensors could see across entire star systems. Within minutes, hundreds of crystal vessels were launching into space. Even the proud warrior clans of Krathen received the call. These beings lived for battle and conquest, but they had never fought alongside other species. Now they found themselves preparing to join forces with their oldest enemies, all because of words they barely understood. Galactic Law 0001 violation detected. On distant worlds and hidden bases and secret shipyards, the galaxy was waking up. Species that had not spoken to each other in centuries were suddenly coordinating their movements. Ancient treaties that had been forgotten were being activated. War fleets that existed only in emergency plans were being assembled. Captain Jess Chun knew none of this. She sat alone in the ruins of her ship, holding a picture of her crew. They had been like family to her. Tony was only 22 years old. He had joined them fresh out of pilot school, excited to see the galaxy. Maria had taught Jess how to fix the older engine systems with nothing but spare parts and determination. Marcus told the best stories during the long jumps between stars. Now they were gone, and their killers were probably already attacking another innocent ship somewhere else in the void. Jess activated the ship's sensor array to see if the pirates were still around. What she saw made her gasp. Ships were coming, hundreds of them. The sensors showed contact after contact appearing at the edge of the system. But these were not pirate vessels. She recognized the blue and silver hulls of Colonium. Battle cruisers, the massive bulk of Quarren dreadnoughts, the sleek forms of ethereal lightships, the geometric patterns of resonance crystal vessels. Species that never worked together were arriving in the same fleet. What the hell? Jess whispered. Her communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect human English, though. She could tell it was not human. Human vessel Lucky Strike. This is Admiral Reefsinger of the Aquatic Fleet. We are responding to your distress call. Are you in need of immediate medical assistance? Jess keyed her microphone with trembling fingers. This is Captain Chun. I'm the only survivor. My crew is dead. The Vorthak pirates killed them. There was a long pause. When the Admiral spoke again, her voice was different, colder. Captain Chun, please stand by for rescue. The beings responsible for this crime will be brought to justice. More ships kept arriving. Jess had never seen so many different types of vessels in one place. The fleet was enormous and growing larger by the minute. She tried to count the ships but gave up when she reached 500. They just kept coming. A small rescue shuttle approached the Lucky Strike. Through the window, Jess could see the strange forms of the aquatic crew inside their water-filled helmets. They moved with gentle efficiency as they brought her aboard their ship. The inside of the aquatic vessel was warm and humid. The crew treated Jess with surprising kindness. They gave her medical attention and clean clothes. They asked no questions about what had happened. They simply cared for her as if she was one of their own. Through the shuttle's windows, Jess watched more ships arrive. She saw Vorthak designs among them and felt her anger return. But then she noticed something strange. The Vorthak ships were not attacking. They were joining the fleet. Excuse me, she said to one of her rescuers. Why are the Vorthak helping? Their people killed my crew. The aquatic medic's tentacles waved in what Jess somehow knew was distress. Not all Vorthak are pirates, Captain Chun, the ones who attacked. You have violated the most sacred law in the galaxy. Every species, even their own people, must respond. Sacred law? The law that protects humans? It is older than any of our civilizations. Older than most of our recorded histories. Breaking it brings consequences that no one wants to face. Jess did not understand. What kind of consequences? The medic's large eyes looked away. The kind that make entire species disappear forever. Before Jess could ask what that meant, alarms sounded throughout the ship. Through the windows she could see the fleet moving into formation. It was the largest gathering of military forces in galactic history, and it was all because 3 humans had been murdered by pirates. The rescued captain felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. She was starting to realize that her simple distress call had triggered something much bigger than a rescue operation. The entire galaxy was mobilizing for war, and she did not understand why. In the distance, near the edge of the system, she could see a cluster of black ships. The Vorthek pirates who had killed her friends were still there, probably wondering why so many vessels were gathering. They had no idea what was coming for them. Admiral Reefsinger's voice came over the ship's communication system. All vessels, this is Fleet Command. We have located the criminal vessels responsible for the violation of Galactic Law 001. Begin approach to target coordinates. Remember, this is not just about justice. This is about ensuring that such a crime never happens again. The massive fleet began to move as one. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species, all united by a law that Jess had never heard of. A law that apparently made her life, and the lives of all humans, worth more than entire civilizations. As they approached the pirates, Jess found herself wondering what kind of people her species must be to deserve such protection, and why everyone seemed so terrified of what would happen if that protection failed. She was about to find out that sometimes being protected was not about being weak. Sometimes it was about being so dangerous that the only safe option was to make sure you never had a reason to be angry. The black ships of the Vorthak pirates grew larger in the windows. They were outnumbered 1,000 to 1, but they did not seem to realize it yet. Soon they would understand the true cost of breaking the one rule that kept the galaxy safe, the rule that said you never, ever hurt humans. Warlord Thakmer stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the massive fleet surrounding his small group of pirate ships. In his long career of raiding and killing, he had never seen anything like this. Hundreds of vessels from species that were supposed to hate each other were working together like parts of one giant machine. How many ships? He asked his navigator, a scared-looking Vorthik with shaking claws. Over 800, Warlord. Maybe more. They keep coming. Thakmer's blood-red eyes narrowed. He had been raiding in this sector for 20 years. He knew the patrol schedules. He knew which species controlled which systems. This was supposed to be empty space, far from any major military presence. Yet here was the largest war fleet he had ever seen. What do they want? He growled. His communications officer looked up from her station. Sir, we are receiving a message from the fleet commander. They are demanding our immediate surrender? Surrender? Thakmer laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. We are Vorthek. We do not surrender. To anyone. But even as he said it, he felt doubt creeping into his mind. The Vorthak were proud warriors, but they were not stupid. This fleet could destroy them without effort. Why were so many species working together? What had changed? The communications officer spoke again. Sir, they are also demanding we hand over all crew members who participated in the attack on the human merchant vessel. Human? Thakmer's confusion grew. What is special about humans? We kill many species. Why do they care about humans? Before anyone could answer, every screen on the bridge lit up with the same message. It appeared in Vorthak script, glowing red letters that made everyone on the bridge step back. Violation of Galactic Law 001 confirmed. Surrender all personnel involved in human casualties. Non-compliance will result in total species extinction. The bridge fell silent. Total species extinction. Not just the death of Thakmer's crew, but the complete destruction of every Vorthik in the galaxy. Billions of lives ended because of one small raid. That cannot be real, whispered the navigator. They cannot mean the entire species. Thakmer felt fear for the first time in decades. He had heard old stories about species that had vanished from the galaxy. Entire civilizations that had simply stopped existing with only empty worlds left behind. He had always thought they were myths. Now he wondered if they were warnings. Meanwhile, Zixtara watched from the Colonian command ship as the massive fleet took position around the Vorthik pirates. She had been given permission to observe the operation as part of her diplomatic education. What she was seeing would stay with her for the rest of her life. Why so many ships? She asked Admiral Krelvax, the fleet commander. There are only 12 pirate vessels. We could destroy them with a single dreadnought. The admiral's scales were dark green with worry. This is not about the pirates, young diplomat. This is about the law. When Galactic Law 001 is broken, the entire galaxy must respond. Not just to punish the criminals, but to send a message that can be heard across all of space and time. What message? That some lines must never be crossed. That some prices are too high to pay? That the protection of humans is absolute and non-negotiable. Zixthara looked at the data flowing across the command screens. Ships from every corner of the galaxy were still arriving. Species that had not spoken to each other in centuries were coordinating their movements with perfect precision. It was as if they were following some ancient plan that had been waiting for this moment. How do they all know what to do? She asked. The protocols are built into our military systems, the admiral explained. Every ship, every fleet, every command structure has them. We are taught them in academy, but they are so old that most of us thought they were just tradition. Now we see they are real. On the screens, Zixthara could see the Vorthak ships trying to form a defensive formation. It was laughable. 12 small ships against hundreds of the galaxy's most powerful warships. But something bothered her about what she was seeing. Admiral, look at the fleet composition. We have ships from species that are supposed to be at war with each other. The Chthonians and the Zephyrians have been fighting for 300 years. How are they working together? Admiral Krelvax was quiet for a long moment. The human protection protocols override all other considerations, all treaties, all conflicts, all politics. When the protocols are activated, every species becomes part of the same military force. We are no longer Colonians or Chthonians or Zephyrians. We are all guardians of the first law. But why? What makes humans so special? The admiral's expression grew dark. I do not know, young one. And I am not. Sure, I want to know. Back on the Vorthak flagship, Warlord Thakemore was trying to contact his home world. The communication was filled with static, but he could hear the voice of High Command on the other end. Warlord Thakemore, you must surrender immediately, the voice said. The entire Galactic Council is mobilizing against us. Our own people are demanding we hand you over. Our own people? Thakemore was shocked. The Vorthak do not betray their warriors. This is different. The Council has activated something called the Human Protection Protocols. Every species in the galaxy is required to help hunt down anyone who harms humans. Even our own government must comply or face total war. That is insane. They are just humans, weak, soft creatures with no claws or fangs. Warlord, listen to me very carefully. I have been speaking with our historians. They have found records of what happens to a species that harm humans. The records are incomplete, but what we can read is terrifying. Entire civilizations have been erased, not conquered, not enslaved, but completely removed from existence. Thakemore felt his certainty cracking. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe humans are not as weak as they appear. I'm saying that maybe the galaxy is so afraid of them that they would rather destroy us than risk human anger. You must surrender, Warlord. You must surrender now. The communication ended, leaving Thakemore alone with his fear. He looked around the bridge at his crew. These were hardened pirates who had faced death many times. Now they all looked terrified. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, the fleet is hailing us again. Put them through. A new voice came over the speakers. This one was human. Captain Jess Chen spoke with a calm that somehow made her words more frightening than any threat. Vorthak vessels, this is Captain Chun of the merchant ship Lucky Strike. You killed my crew. Maria, Santos, Tony Williams, and Marcus Rodriguez. They were good people who never hurt anyone. They had families waiting for them at home. Thakemore found his voice. Human, you speak to Warlord Thakemore of the Vorthak 4th Rating Fleet. We are warriors. We take what we want and kill who we please. Your people died because they were weak. The silence that followed lasted so long that Thakemore wondered if the communication had been cut. When Captain Chun spoke again, her voice was different, colder. I see. You killed them because you could, because it was fun. Because they could not stop you. Yes, Thakmer said, feeling some of his old pride return, the strong take from the weak. That is the way of the universe. No, Captain Chun replied. That is not the way of the universe. That is just the way of things when the strong are sleeping. But you have made a mistake, warlord. You woke us up. Before Thakmer could ask what she meant, every ship in the massive fleet opened. Fire at once. Zixtara watched in shock as hundreds of energy beams, missiles, and projectiles streaked toward the Vorthak ships. It was not a battle, it was an execution. The pirate vessels were destroyed so quickly that they barely had time to scream. But that was not the end. As the debris of the pirate ships drifted in space, more ships began arriving. These were not warships. They were transport vessels filled with troops. Specialized ships designed for planetary assault. Deep space construction vessels carrying massive weapons. What are they doing? Zixtara asked. Admiral Kralvax was reading reports. From across the galaxy, his face was pale. They are not just destroying the pirates. They are going after the entire Vorthak species. Every world, every colony, every outpost. But that's genocide. No, the Admiral said quietly. That is Galactic Law 001. Complete species extinction for harming humans, no exceptions. On screens. Throughout the command ship, Zixtara could see the operation unfolding across Vorthak space. Fleets were arriving at every Vorthak world simultaneously. Some planets were evacuating civilian populations to prison ships. Others were being bombarded from orbit. The most heavily defended worlds were under full military assault. This is wrong, Zixtara said. Not all Vorthak are pirates. There are civilians down there. Children. The law makes no distinctions, Admiral Kralvax replied. When a species harms humans, the entire species pays the price? But why? What could possibly justify this? The Admiral was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke in a voice so low that Zixtara had to strain to hear him. Because the alternative is worse. Because the last time someone harmed humans, the humans themselves did this to their enemies. And they did not stop with one species. They hunted down everyone who had ever opposed them. Billions died before the galaxy learned to protect humans. From themselves? Zixtara felt the blood drain from her face. You mean humans did this before? They destroyed entire species? According to the oldest records, yes. The human protection protocols were not created to protect humans from us. They were created to protect us from humans. To make sure humans never again have a reason to be angry. As if to prove his point, Captain Chian's voice came over the fleet communications one more time. This is for Maria, Tony, and Marcus. And for everyone else who will never have to face Vorthak pirates again. Around them, the systematic destruction of an entire civilization continued. And Zixtara began to understand that the galaxy's greatest fear was not that humans were weak and needed protection. The galaxy's greatest fear was that humans were strong and might remember it. Zixtara could not sleep. 3 days had passed since the destruction of the Vorthak pirate fleet, and the systematic elimination of the Vorthak species was nearly complete. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the images from the fleets. Reports, burning worlds, empty cities. Millions of beings turned to ash because 12 pirates had killed 3 humans. She sat in her quarters aboard the Colonian command ship, surrounded by data tablets and archive files. The more she learned about Galactic Law 001, the more questions she had. The law was older than any civilization she knew about. It existed before the Galactic Council, before most species had even left their homeworlds. Yet somehow, every race in the galaxy knew about it and followed it without question. Her door chimed softly. Enter, she called Ambassador Kralvax. Walked in, looking older than she had ever seen him. The past few days had aged him terribly. His usually bright scales were dull and gray. You have been researching, he said, looking at the mess of files around her. Yes, sir, I am trying to understand what we have done. What we are still doing. And what have you learned? Zixtara picked up one of the tablets. The Vorthak are not the first, Ambassador. I have found references to dozens of species that no longer exist. The Krillian Empire, the Deshtar Collective, the Morning Worlds. All of them are gone, and all of them violated something called the Human Protection Directive. Krelvac sat down heavily in the chair across from her. Those are old names, very old, but that is just it, sir. They are not that old. The Krillian Empire fell only 800 years ago. The Deshtar Collective disappeared 600 years ago. These extinctions have been happening regularly throughout history. What are you saying? Zixthara stood up and began pacing. I am saying that this is not the first time Galactic Law 001 has been enforced. Species have been disappearing for thousands of years, always for the same reason. Always because they harmed humans. That is impossible. Humans have only been part of galactic civilization for 300 years. No, Ambassador, that is what we have been told. But the records show something different. She picked up another tablet. I found fragments of older archives. Humans have been known to the galaxy for much longer than 300 years. Much longer. Krelvac looked uncomfortable. Where did you find these records? Deep in the archive. Networks. Most of them are encrypted or damaged. But I found enough pieces to see a pattern. She activated a holographic display that showed a timeline. Look at this. Every few decades, sometimes every few centuries, a species disappears, always the same reason. Always the same method. Complete extinction with no survivors. Show me. Zixthara manipulated the display, highlighting different entries. Here, the savage minds of Proxima. Gone 4,000 years ago. Here, the dark fleet of the Void Walkers. Gone 3,500 years ago, the hegemony of shadows. Gone 3,000 years ago. All of them eliminated for violating the human protection protocols. But humans could not have been in space. 4,000 years ago, their current technology, Zixthara corrected. What if they had better technology before? What if something happened to make them forget? Krelvac was quiet for a long time. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that we have been lied to. About humans, about their history, about why they need protection. Zixthara activated another display. Look at this. I found a partial record from the Eternal Librarians. They were supposed to document everything that happened in the galaxy. But even their records have gaps. Huge sections of time that are completely missing. The Eternal Librarians disappeared too. Yes, and according to this fragment, they disappeared right after they started asking questions about human history. Zixthara brought up a new file. The text was old and partially corrupted, but readable. This is what I found in their archives. Listen to this. The humans were not always as they are now. Once, they were the hunters, not the hunted. Once, they were the ones who made other species disappear. The current protocols exist not to protect humans, but to protect the galaxy from remembering what humans truly are. Krelvac stood up suddenly. Zixthara, you must stop this research immediately. Why? What are you not telling me? Because some knowledge is too dangerous to possess, because some truths are better left buried. No. Zixthara slammed her hand on the desk. 3 days ago, I watched an entire species get wiped out because of a law that no one understands. Billions of beings are dead, and we do not even know why. I will not stop until I understand what we have done. Krelvac looked around nervously, as if he expected someone to be listening. Then he moved closer to her and spoke in a whisper. Very well, but what I tell you must never be repeated. Never written down, never shared with anyone, I promise. My grandfather was very old when I was young. He remembered stories that his grandfather had told him. Stories about the time before. The protection protocols. Stories about when humans first came to the galaxy. Zixthara leaned forward. What kind of stories? Stories about a species that was enslaved, hunted, treated as animals by the great empires of that time. Humans were taken from their world and used as slaves, as soldiers, as entertainment. They were considered primitive and weak. What happened? They learned. They adapted. They became something that the galaxy had never seen before. They did not just fight back. They won, and they did not stop with their captors. They hunted down every species that had participated in their enslavement. They hunted them across the galaxy until nothing was left but empty worlds and warning beacons. Zixthara felt cold. How many species? Hundreds. Maybe thousands. Entire sectors of space were left empty. The humans were not content with freedom. They wanted revenge. Against everyone who had ever wronged them. But they stopped. The killing stopped. Yes, but not because they were defeated, because they chose to stop. The surviving species begged for mercy. They promised to serve humans forever. They promised to protect human worlds and human lives, above all else. In exchange, the humans agreed to forget their past and live in peace. Zixthara stared at the holographic timeline. So Galactic Law 001 is not about protecting humans. It is about making sure they never have a reason to remember who they used to be. Exactly. As long as humans are safe and happy, they remain peaceful. But if they are threatened, if they are harmed, they might remember what they are capable of, and the galaxy would rather commit genocide than risk that happening. Yes, because the alternative is not the death of one species, it is the death of all species. Zixthara sat down slowly. Everything made sense now. The fear she had seen in the assembly hall, the immediate response to human casualties, the systematic destruction of anyone who broke the protection protocols, it was not justice. It was terror. Ambassador, what happens if humans find out the truth? I do not know. No one knows. That is why the truth has been buried so deeply. That is why the records have been destroyed or hidden. The galaxy's greatest fear is not that humans will be harmed. It is that humans will remember. As if summoned by their conversation, Zixthara's communication device activated. A message was coming through from the human rescue ships. Captain. Chun's voice filled the room. This is Captain Chun to all fleet vessels. I am requesting access to historical records about the Vortex species. I want to understand why this response was necessary. I want to know why killing 3 humans resulted in the extinction of an entire race. Zixthara and Krelvac looked at each other in horror. The human was asking questions. The same questions that Zixthara had been asking. The same questions that could uncover the truth. This is Admiral Reefsinger, came the reply. Captain Chun, such information is classified under galactic security. Protocols, I cannot provide those records. Then I will find them myself, Captain Chun replied. My crew is dead and billions of beings have been killed in their name. I have a right to know why. The communication ended, leaving the room in silence. She is going to keep looking, Zixthara said quietly. Yes, and if she finds the truth ... The galaxy will learn what happens when humans get angry. Krelvac moved toward the door. Zixthara, destroy all of your research, delete every file, forget everything you have learned. Why? Because Captain Chun is not the only human asking questions. Reports are coming in from human colonies across the galaxy. They are all demanding explanations for what happened to the Vortex. They are all starting to research their own history. Zixthara felt a chill run down her spine. How many humans are there in the galaxy? Billions, on hundreds of worlds. And they are all starting to wake up. As Krelvac left, Zixthara looked at her research files. Everything was there, the evidence of humanity's true history. The proof that humans were not the protected innocents everyone believed them to be. They were the galaxy's most dangerous. Predators deliberately kept ignorant of their own power. She thought about deleting the files as her mentor had advised. But then she thought about Captain Chun, alone on a rescue ship, demanding answers that no one wanted to give her. She thought about the other humans across the galaxy all starting to ask the same dangerous questions. The truth was already coming out. The galaxy's greatest secret was starting to unravel. And when it did, everyone would learn why the first and most important law in galactic civilization was simple: you do not hurt humans. Not because they were weak and needed protection, but because they were strong enough to destroy everything if given a reason to fight. The age of human ignorance was ending. and Zixthara had a terrible feeling that the age of galactic peace was ending with it. Captain Jess Chen stood in the archives of Nexus Prime, her hands shaking as she read the files on her datapad. 3 weeks had passed since the destruction of the Vortex species, and she had spent every day searching for answers. What she had found changed everything she thought she knew about humanity. The archive keeper, a nervous ethereal named Whisper of Stars, floated nearby. His translucent form flickered with anxiety as he watched the human read the Forbiddance records. These files were supposed to be sealed forever, but Captain Chun had used her status as a victim of the Vorthic attack to gain access. "This cannot be real," Jess whispered, staring at the ancient records. "This says that humans once controlled half the galaxy, that we had technology that could destroy stars, that we hunted entire species to extinction for sport." Whisper of Stars dimmed his light in distress. "Captain Chin, perhaps you should not read these files. Some knowledge brings only pain." "Pain?" Jess looked up at him with eyes that burned with anger. "Do you know what brings pain? Watching your friends die? Watching billions of beings get slaughtered in your name? Finding out that your entire species has been living a lie?" She turned back to the datapad, reading aloud from the ancient text. "The human empire reached its peak 3,000 years ago, when the last of their enemies were eliminated. Entire sectors of space were left barren. Worlds that had supported billions of lives became graveyards. The humans showed no mercy to those who had enslaved them, and even less mercy to those who had simply stood by and watched." "Captain, please. It says here that humans developed weapons that could crack planets in half. Ships that could travel faster than anything else in the galaxy. Soldiers who were trained from birth to be perfect killers." Jess's voice was getting louder. "This is what we were. This is what my people really are." "Were," Whisper of Stars said quickly. "That was long ago. Humans are different now. Peaceful. The memory modifications ensured that ... Jess froze. Memory modifications? The ethereal realized his mistake immediately. His form flickered and started to fade as he tried to escape, but Jess grabbed the edge of his containment field. "What memory modifications?" she demanded. I cannot. "I am not supposed to ... Tell me." Whisper of Stars stopped trying to escape. His light pulsed weakly as he spoke. "After the Great War ended, the surviving species made a deal with the human leaders. The humans would be given their own worlds and left in peace. In exchange, they would submit to memory modification. Their history would be erased, their technology would be destroyed. They would forget what they had been and become ... ordinary." Jess felt like the floor was falling away beneath her feet. "You erased our memories? You made us forget our own history?" "It was the only way to stop the killing. Humans would not negotiate. They would not stop their revenge. The only choice was to make them forget why they were angry." "And the protection protocols?" "Insurance. If humans ever remembered, if they ever had reason to be angry again, every species in the galaxy would unite to protect them, to keep them happy, to make sure they never had cause to become what they once were." Jess staggered backward, her mind reeling. Everything made sense now. Why the galaxy was so terrified of human casualties. Why entire species would be wiped out for harming a few humans. It was not protection. It was appeasement. The galaxy was desperately trying to keep humanity calm and ignorant. "How many humans know?" she asked. "None. The memory modifications were complete. Human history was rewritten. Your technology was replaced with simpler versions. Your colonies were given false founding stories. Every record of what you truly were was hidden or destroyed." "But not all of them. No, some records survived. Hidden in the deepest archives. Kept secret by those who remembered the old times. We kept them as warnings. Reminders of what could happen if we failed to keep humans peaceful." Jess walked to the window and stared out at the vast space station. Thousands of ships from hundreds of species moved around Nexus Prime like busy insects, all of them living with the constant fear that the sleeping giants might wake up. "The other humans," she said quietly, Are they learning the truth too? Whisper of Stars dimmed further. Yes, the Vorthik incident has caused too much attention. Too many questions. The memory blocks are starting to break down. Reports are coming in from human colonies across the galaxy. Your people are remembering. As if to confirm his words, Jess's communication device activated. A message was coming in from New Terra, one of the largest human colonies. This is Governor Martinez of New Terra calling all human settlements. We have discovered ancient technology buried beneath our capital city, technology that does not match our supposed history. We are demanding answers from the Galactic Council immediately. Another message followed from the Proxima colonies. This is Admiral Sarah Kim of the Human Colonial Fleet. Our archaeologists have found weapons caches on 12 different worlds. Weapons far more advanced than anything we supposedly ever built. The evidence suggests we have been lied to about our origins. More messages poured in. Human settlements across the galaxy were making the same discoveries, hidden bunkers, buried starships. Ancient records that told a different story than the official history. Jess turned back to Whisper of Stars. How long do we have before humans remember everything? I do not know. The memory modifications were designed to last forever, but they were never tested against this kind of systematic investigation. If enough humans learn the truth, if they share their discoveries, the blocks will collapse completely. Yes, and when that happens, Galaxy gets to meet the real human race. Whisper of Stars flickered one final time before disappearing entirely, leaving Jess alone in the archives. She looked down at her communication device as more messages arrived. Human fleets were being recalled from their peaceful missions. Human colonies were demanding explanations. Human scientists were reverse engineering the ancient technology they were finding. The careful lie that had kept the galaxy safe for 3,000 years was falling apart. Jess thought about her dead crew members. Maria, Tony, and Marcus had been good people. They had lived their entire lives believing that humans were just another species. Just ordinary beings trying to make their way in a vast galaxy. They had died as innocents, but they had been so much more than that. They had been descendants of the galaxy's apex predators. Warriors who had once made entire civilizations tremble in fear. Beings who had rewritten the laws of physics to build better weapons. And now the truth was coming out. Jess activated her own communication device and sent a message to every human settlement in the galaxy. This is Captain Jess Chun. I am sending you files from the Nexus Prime archives. Read them carefully. Learn what we really are. Learn what they tried to hide from us. She attached the ancient records and hit send. The message would take hours to reach the farthest human colonies, but when it did, the last of the memory blocks would shatter. Already, she could feel something changing inside her own mind. Memories that were not quite memories. Knowledge that felt both alien and familiar. The genetic programming that the memory modifications had suppressed was starting to reassert itself. She remembered her grandfather's stories about the old days. Stories that had seemed like fairy tales when she was young. Stories about humans who could think faster than computers and fight better than machines. Stories about a time when humans ruled the stars. Those had not been stories. They had been memories. Across the galaxy, other humans were experiencing the same awakening. On New Terra, Governor Martinez stood in the ruins of an ancient human fortress, watching as holographic displays came online after thousands of years of sleep. The displays showed star maps of human territories that had once stretched across entire galactic arms on Proxima 7. Admiral Kim walked through a buried shipyard where thousands of human warships lay waiting. Ships that made current galactic dreadnoughts look like toys. Ships designed by minds that understood warfare in ways that modern humans had forgotten. On colony after colony, world after world, humanity was waking up. And as they woke up, they remembered what had been done to them. Not just the original enslavement, but the theft of their memories. The deliberate crippling of their species. The transformation of apex predators into harmless merchants and farmers the galaxy had made. A terrible mistake. They had thought that making humans forget would make them safe. But they had forgotten something important about human nature. Humans did not like being lied to. They did not like being controlled. And they especially did not like having their memories stolen. Jess Chun stood in the archives of Nexus Prime and felt the awakening spreading through her species like wildfire. Soon, every human in the galaxy would know the truth, would remember what they had been, would understand what had been taken from them. The galaxy had spent 3,000 years living in fear of what would happen if humans remembered their true nature. Now they were about to find out if that fear was justified. In the distance, Jess could see human ships beginning to move with new purpose. No longer the slow, predictable movements of merchants and explorers. These were the quick, decisive movements of predators who had caught the scent of prey. The age of human ignorance was over. The age of human anger was about to begin, and this time there would be no memory modifications to stop them. No lies to keep them calm. No protection protocols to shield the galaxy from human wrath. This time the galaxy would learn the true meaning of the rule they had lived by for so long: you do not hurt humans. Not because they were weak and needed protection, but because they were the most dangerous species the universe had ever produced. The hunters were awake, and they remembered everything. The galaxy had spent 3,000 years preparing for this moment, building fleets and protocols to contain human anger. But they had made one critical error. They had assumed that when humans remembered what they were, they would still be the same primitive beings they had once enslaved. They had not considered that 3,000 years of forced evolution, even under memory blocks, might have made humans even more dangerous than before. The real war was about to begin. And this time, humanity would not stop until every species that had participated in their enslavement and deception had paid the price. The rule was simple: you do not hurt humans. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when that rule was broken not once, but for 3,000 years. Commander Vashtai floated in the control center of his ship, the Kathmoran. His blue skin glowed softly in the dim light as he watched the screens around him. For 300 years he had done the same job. He traveled through space, watching young species learn to use fire, then metal, then electricity. It was slow work, but someone had to do it. The third planet in this star system was interesting. The creatures there called themselves humans. They had learned to split atoms and send small ships into space around their world. They also sent radio signals that traveled far into the darkness. Vashtai had been watching them for 50 years now. They were getting smarter, but they were still very young compared to his people. Today felt different, though. Something was coming toward them from the human planet. At first, Vashtai thought it was just another simple probe. The humans sent these small ships out to look at rocks and ice in their solar system. But as he watched this new ship, he noticed it was moving in a strange way. It was too smooth, too planned. "Zekran, look at this," Vashtai called to his science officer. "This human ship is not like the others." Zekran swam over to Vashtai's station. His green tentacles moved quickly as he checked the readings. "You are right, Commander. This ship is bigger than their usual probes. And look at how it moves. It knows exactly where it wants to go." Vashtai felt worried. The humans were supposed to be hundreds of years away from real space travel. Their ships should barely be able to leave their planet's gravity. But this ship was moving through space like it belonged there. "Run a full scan," Vashtai ordered. "I want to know everything about that ship." "Sir, that is against the rules," Zekran said carefully. "We are only supposed to watch from far away. If we scan them too closely, they might know we are here." Vashtai's 4 hearts beat faster. He knew the rules. For thousands of years, the Galactic Confederation had watched young species from a distance. They only made contact when a species was ready, which usually took many centuries. But something about this human ship made him feel like the rules might not apply anymore. "Do the scan," he said firmly. Zekran hesitated for a moment, then pressed the controls. Invisible beams of energy shot out from the Kethmoran toward the human ship. The beams would tell them everything about the ship's materials, its power source, and its technology level. The results came back in seconds, and both aliens stared at their screens in shock. "This cannot be right," Zekran whispered. "The human ship's hull was made of materials that should not exist." The energy readings showed technology that was far beyond what they had seen from human radio signals. The ship had power levels that rivaled some Confederation vessels. "Run the scan again," Veshtai demanded. "Check for errors." The second scan gave the same impossible results. Somehow, the humans had built a ship using technology that was centuries ahead of what they should have. It was like watching a child who had just learned to walk suddenly start running faster than an adult, but then something even stranger happened. The human ship stopped moving. For a moment, it just floated in space. Then, slowly, it began to turn. It turned until it was pointing directly at the Chef Morin. "Commander," Zekran's voice was shaking. "I think they know we are here." That was impossible. The Kethmoran was using the most advanced hiding technology in the galaxy. No young species should be able to detect them, especially not from this distance. But the human ship was clearly looking right at them. Then the human ship began sending a signal. "What are they transmitting?" Vashtai asked. Zekran worked quickly at his controls. "It is ... It is numbers, sir. Mathematical sequences. They are sending us the Fibonacci sequence." Vashtai felt a chill run through his body. The Fibonacci sequence was a mathematical pattern that appeared in nature throughout the galaxy. It was often used as a basic intelligence test for first contact situations. But how could the humans know to use it? How did they even know someone was listening? "Are they still transmitting?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Now they are sending prime numbers, and now they are sending mathematical constants." Pi, the golden ratio, Euler's number. The bridge fell silent. Every officer on the ship was staring at the communications display. The humans were not just randomly sending numbers. They were demonstrating their intelligence in the clearest way possible. They were trying to talk. "What do we do, Commander?" Zekran asked quietly. Vashtai stared at the human ship on his screen. In all his centuries of watching young species, nothing like this had ever happened. The protocols were clear. If a young species detected them, they were supposed to retreat immediately and report to the Confederation Council. The Council would then decide if the species was too dangerous and needed to be contained. But the humans were not attacking. They were not running away in fear. They were trying to communicate using the universal language of mathematics. They were being peaceful and logical. "Send a response," Vashtai said suddenly. "Sir?" Zekran looked shocked. "Send them the next 10 numbers in the Fibonacci sequence. Let them know we understand." "Commander, the protocols assume that young species cannot detect us," Vashtai interrupted. "These humans have already broken that assumption. If we follow standard protocol and retreat, they will know someone was here but left without talking. That might make them afraid or angry. If we respond peacefully, maybe we can control this situation." Zekran still looked uncertain, but he followed orders. The Kethmoran sent the requested mathematical sequence back to the human ship. The response came within seconds. The humans sent back a more complex mathematical proof, something that should have taken their species decades to discover. Then they sent another proof and another. Each one was more advanced than the last. "Commander," Zekran said in wonder, "they are learning. With each exchange, their mathematics are getting more sophisticated. It is like they are growing smarter as we watch." Vashtai studied the patterns. It was true. The humans were not just showing off their existing knowledge. They were somehow using the conversation itself to develop new understanding. They were adapting in real time. "How is this possible?" one of the other officers asked. "I do not know," Vashtai admitted. "But I have a feeling we are about to find out." The human ship sent another transmission. This time, it was not just mathematics. It was a crude but recognizable diagram of the Kethmoran-S scanning beam, with notations that showed the humans understood how it worked. "They analyzed our scan," Zekran said in disbelief. They figured out how our technology works just from being scanned by it. That was when Vashtai realized they were dealing with something unprecedented. The humans had not just detected the scan and understood it was artificial. They had reverse-engineered the technology behind it in a matter of hours. The implications hit him like a physical blow. If the humans could analyze and understand Confederation technology this quickly, what else could they do? What would they be capable of in a year? In a decade? Sir, we need to report this to the Council immediately, one officer said nervously. Vashtai nodded slowly. Yes, we do. But first, we need to understand what we are dealing with. He turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to the human ship. Full spectrum, all languages in our database. Sir, that would be full first contact protocol. Are you sure? Vashtai looked at the human ship on his screen. It hung there peacefully in space, waiting. Not threatening, not running, just waiting to see what would happen next. These humans had detected his advanced ship, analyzed his technology, and responded with mathematics and curiosity instead of fear or aggression. Maybe the old protocols did not apply to a species like this. Open the channel, he said firmly. As the communication link established, Vashtai felt the weight of history on his shoulders. This moment would change everything for both species. He just hoped he was making the right choice. The human ship was still sending mathematical sequences. But now there was something else in their transmissions. Music. Simple, basic music that somehow made the complex mathematics feel warm and welcoming. These humans were not just intelligent. They were creative, peaceful, and brave enough to reach out to the unknown with curiosity instead of fear. Vashtai took a deep breath and prepared to make history. Dr. Sarah Chun felt the strange pulse wash over her ship like a wave of invisible energy. Every instrument on the bridge of the research vessel Endeavour started beeping and flashing at once. The electromagnetic sensors went crazy, showing readings. That should not be possible. What was that? Asked Lieutenant Marcus Webb, her second in command. He was gripping his chair as if the ship might fall apart at any moment. Sarah looked at the data streaming across her screens. She had been studying space phenomena for 15 years, but she had never seen anything like this. The energy pulse had scanned their entire ship in just a few seconds. It had measured everything from the thickness of their hull to the power output of their engines. We just got scanned, she said calmly. By something very advanced? Scanned by what? Marcus asked, his voice getting higher. There is nothing out here. We are 3 billion kilometers from Earth. Sarah smiled. She had been waiting for this moment her entire life. While other scientists studied rocks and gas clouds, she had always believed that humanity was not alone in the universe. She had spent years preparing for the possibility of first contact. Look at Sector 7, she told Marcus. Maximum magnification. The main screen zoomed in on what looked like empty space. But Sarah knew better. She adjusted the sensors to look for gravitational distortions and electromagnetic shadows. Slowly, a shape began to appear on the screen. It was faint, like looking at something through thick fog, but it was definitely there. My God, Marcus whispered. That is a ship. A very big ship, Sarah agreed. And it is using technology we do not understand to hide from us, but not perfectly. The alien vessel was at least twice the size of the Endeavour. Its hull seemed to bend light around it, making it almost invisible. But Sarah had studied stealth technology for years, and she knew how to look for the signs. Should we run? Marcus asked. Should we call for help? Sarah shook her head. If they wanted to hurt us, they would have done it already. That scan was gentle. They are curious about us, just like we are curious about them. She turned to her communications officer. Jenny, I want you to transmit the Fibonacci sequence. Start with the basic pattern and keep going. The Fibonacci sequence? Jenny looked confused. Why? Because it is a mathematical pattern that any intelligent species would recognize. If there really are aliens out there watching us, this will let them know that we understand mathematics and logic. Jenny started transmitting the sequence. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. Each number was the sum of the two numbers before it. It was simple but elegant, and it appeared in nature throughout the universe. They waited. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then their communication system received a response. They sent back the next 10 numbers in the sequence, Jenny said excitedly. They understood what we were trying to do. Sarah felt her heart racing. This was really happening. First contact with an alien species. She had dreamed about this moment since she was a child reading science fiction books. Send them prime numbers, she ordered. 2, 3, 5, 7. 11, 13. Again, the aliens responded correctly. They sent back the next series of prime numbers, showing they understood the concept. Now, send mathematical constants. Pi, the golden ratio, Euler's number. Each time, the aliens responded with the correct information. But then something interesting happened. They started sending back more complex mathematical proofs. Things that human mathematicians had only discovered in the last century. Sarah, Jenny said nervously, they are sending us mathematics that I do not understand. This is way above my education level. Sarah studied the equations flowing across her screen. The aliens were showing off their knowledge, but they were also teaching. Each mathematical proof built on the previous one, like a lesson plan designed to help humans understand more advanced concepts. They are not just talking to us, she realized. They are trying to educate us, but Sarah had a secret. The Endeavour was not just a normal research ship. Hidden deep in its hull were technologies that most of humanity did not know existed. She was part of a special project called Deep Contact, a program designed to prepare for exactly this situation. Marcus, I need you to activate the quantum neural interface, she said quietly. Marcus looked shocked. Sarah, that system is experimental. We do not even know if it works properly. It works, Sarah said confidently. I helped design it. The quantum neural interface was humanity's most advanced computer system. It used quantum processing combined with neural networks that could mimic human intuition. The idea was to create a computer that could think like a human but process information as fast as a machine. More importantly, it was designed to analyze alien technology and figure out how it worked. Bring it online, Sarah ordered. Deep in the ship, massive computers began to hum. The QNI system connected to every sensor on the Endeavour and started analyzing the alien scanning beam. Within minutes, it began to understand how the alien technology functioned. This is incredible, Sarah breathed as data flowed across her screens. Their scanning technology uses principles we have never seen before. It manipulates space-time itself to gather information. But the QNI system did more than just analyze. It began to suggest improvements. Ways to make the alien technology more efficient, methods to extend its range, techniques to gather more detailed information. Sarah, Marcus said in amazement, the system is not just copying their technology, it is making it better. Sarah nodded. This was what made humans special. Other species might be smarter or more advanced, but humans had something unique. They could look at any problem and find a new way to solve it. They could take any technology and improve it. They never accepted that something was impossible. Send our analysis to the alien ship, she decided. Are you sure? Marcus asked. Should we not keep this information secret? Sarah thought about it for a moment. They could try to hide their capabilities. They could pretend to be a simple, primitive species. But that would be dishonest, and it would not lead to real friendship between the species. No, she said firmly. If we want them to trust us, we need to trust them first. The Endeavour transmitted a detailed analysis of the alien scanning technology, complete with suggested improvements. They also sent their own technical specifications, showing the aliens exactly what human technology could do. The response came. Quickly, the alien ship sent back a flood of information. Star charts showing the locations of other intelligent species. Technical manuals for technologies that were thousands of years beyond human understanding, and mathematical proofs that would advance human science by centuries. But mixed in with all the technical data was something else. Music. Alien music that sounded like nothing humans had ever heard, but somehow felt familiar and beautiful. They are not just sharing technology, Jenny realized. They are sharing culture. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. This was better than she had ever imagined. The aliens were not treating humans like primitive children. They were treating them like equals, like potential friends. Incoming transmission, Jenny announced. It is different from the others. I think they are trying to talk to us directly. The main screen flickered, then showed the interior of the alien ship. A blue-skinned creature with 4 arms was floating in what looked like a control room. Behind him, other aliens were working at strange instruments that seemed to respond to thought rather than touch. The blue alien began to speak. The words were in a language that humans had never heard, but the ship's computer worked frantically. To translate, "Greetings, humans of the ship Endeavor. I am Commander Vashtai of the Galactic Confederation vessel Kethmoron. We have been watching your species for many years, but we did not expect you to be capable of detecting our presence." Sarah stepped forward so the alien could see her. "Greetings, Commander Vashtai. I am Dr. Sarah Chun. We are honored to meet." "You, Dr. Chun," the alien said, "your species has surprised us greatly. In just a few hours, you have analyzed our technology and suggested improvements that our scientists never considered. How is this possible?" Sarah thought carefully about how to answer. "Commander, humans have a gift for solving problems in new ways. We do not always know more than others, but we often think differently. We believe that any challenge can be overcome if you approach it from the right angle." Vashtai was quiet for several moments. Behind him, other aliens were studying their own screens, probably analyzing human technology just as the humans had analyzed theirs. "Dr. Chun," he said finally, "we have a difficult decision to make. Our protocols say that we should report your species to our government and ask them to decide what to do about you. Some species are welcomed into our galactic community. Others are considered too dangerous and are isolated." Sarah felt a chill. She had always hoped that aliens would be friendly, but she knew that any advanced civilization would be careful about contact with new species. "What makes a species dangerous?" she asked. Usually it is aggression or the desire to conquer others," Vashtai replied. "But sometimes it is rapid technological advancement. A species that develops too quickly can destabilize the balance of power in the galaxy." Sarah understood. Humans were advancing very fast, and they had just demonstrated that they could analyze and improve alien technology in hours rather than years. That would be frightening to an established galactic civilization. "Commander," she said carefully, "humans are not aggressive toward peaceful species. We explore space because we are curious, not because we want to conquer anyone. We would rather learn from others than fight them. That is what your actions suggest," Vashtai agreed. "You could have tried to hide your capabilities from us, but instead you shared them openly. You responded to our contact with curiosity rather than fear or hostility." Sarah could see other aliens gathering behind Vashtai, all of them studying the humans with intense interest. She realized that this moment would determine the future of both species. "What do you recommend to your government?" she asked. Vashtai was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful. "I believe your species could be valuable allies," he said. "You think in ways that we do not. You solve problems that we cannot solve. Perhaps it is time for the galaxy to learn from humanity instead of just teaching you." Sarah smiled. "We would like that very much, Commander. We have much to learn from you as well." "Then let us begin," Vashtai said. "But first I must warn my government about what is coming. The galaxy is about to change, Dr. Chun. I hope we are all ready for it." Commander Vashtai floated in his private quarters, staring at the reports scattered across his desk. For the past 6 hours, his science team had been working non-stop to understand what they had learned from the human ship. The results were keeping him awake, and that was saying something for a species that only needed 2 hours of rest per day. His door chimed softly. "Enter," he called. Zekran swam into the room. his green tentacles moving in the pattern that meant extreme excitement mixed with deep worry. In his arms, he carried a data tablet that glowed with urgency symbols. "Commander," Zekran said, "you need to see this immediately. The analysis of human technology is complete, and the results are ... impossible?" Vashtai suggested, "Beyond impossible, sir, they are terrifying." Vashtai took the tablet and began reading. With each line, his 4 hearts beat faster. The human ship called Endeavor was not what it appeared to be. On the outside, it looked like a simple research vessel, the kind that young species used to study rocks and ice in their home systems. But hidden inside were technologies that challenged everything the Confederation thought they knew about scientific development. "This quantum neural interface," Vashtai said, pointing to a section of the report. "Explain it to me in simple terms." Zekran's tentacles twisted nervously. "Sir, it is a computer system that thinks like a biological brain but processes information like a quantum computer. It can analyze any technology and understand how it works within minutes. But more than that, it can improve the technology by thinking of new ways to use it. And this is possible for a species that we thought was centuries away from real space travel?" "That is not the worst part, Commander," Zekran continued. "Look at Section 12. Vashtai read further and felt his blood turn cold. The human ship had not just analyzed their scanning technology. It had improved it by 37%. Technologies that had taken the Confederation thousands of years to develop had been enhanced by humans in a matter of hours. "How?" Vashtai asked quietly. "We think it has to do with how human brains work," Zekran explained. "Most species, including ours, develop technology in a linear way. We learn one thing, then the next, then the next. Each step builds on the previous step, but humans seem to think in patterns. They see connections that we miss. They ask questions that we never think to ask." Vashtai set down the tablet and looked out his window at the human ship. It hung there peacefully in space, sending them music and mathematical equations like gifts between friends. But now he understood that this innocent-looking vessel represented something that could change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. "Give me an example," he said. "Well, sir, our scanning technology works by sending out energy beams that interact with matter and return information. We have been using this method for 3,000 years. The humans looked at our design and asked a simple question: what if we do not send energy to the target, but instead make the target send energy to us?" Vashtai thought about this. That would be more efficient, much more efficient, sir. And it would be almost impossible to detect. The humans essentially invented a completely new type of scanning technology just by asking a question we never thought to ask. The commander felt a strange mixture of admiration and fear. The humans were brilliant, but their brilliance was dangerous. In the wrong hands, their ability to rapidly understand and improve technology could destabilize the careful peace that the Confederation had maintained for millennia. "What else have they shown us?" he asked. Zekran activated a holographic display. That showed various human innovations. They sent us improvements to our energy storage systems, our communication arrays, and our life support technologies. Every single improvement is practical and could be implemented immediately. But, sir, these are not just random lucky guesses. They show a deep understanding of physics that should take centuries to develop. Vashtai studied the improvements. Each one was elegant and simple, the kind of solution that made you wonder why no one had thought of it before. But that was apparently what humans did. They looked at complex problems and found simple solutions. "There is something else, Commander," Zekran said hesitantly. "Something that worries me even more." "What?" "The humans are not just improving our technology, they are learning from it. Each exchange we have with them, they understand more about how Confederation science works. At this rate, they will know everything we know within a few months." Vashtai felt a chill run through his body. The Confederation had always maintained their position in the galaxy through superior technology. They were not the strongest species or the most numerous, but they were the most advanced. If humans could match that advancement in months instead of millennia, everything would change. Have you calculated how long it would take them to surpass us? He asked. Zekran's tentacles drooped. Based on their current rate of learning and improvement, we estimate they could exceed our technological capabilities within 2 years. Within 5 years, they could be the most advanced species in the galaxy. The room fell silent. Vashti thought about the implications. The Confederation had ruled the galaxy not through force, but through the fact that other species needed their technology and knowledge. If humans could provide better technology, the entire political structure of the galaxy would collapse. But there was another possibility, one that scared him even more. Zekran, he said slowly, what if we are looking at this wrong? What if the humans are not a threat to the Confederation, but the solution to our greatest problems? Sir? Vashti stood up and began pacing around his quarters, his mind racing. For the past 1,000 years, Confederation science has been stagnating. We have become so focused on maintaining our existing knowledge that we have stopped discovering new knowledge. Our greatest scientists spend their time preserving old discoveries instead of making new ones. That is true, sir. The Council of Sciences has not announced a major breakthrough in over 2 centuries. But look at what the humans have accomplished in just 1 day, Vashti continued. They have made improvements to our technology that our scientists never even considered. What could they accomplish if we gave them access to our full scientific database? Zekran looked thoughtful. They could solve problems that we have been working on for generations. Exactly. The great barrier around the galactic core that prevents us from exploring the center of the galaxy, the quantum plague that destroyed the Altarian civilization, the energy crisis that is slowly killing the gas giant colonies. What if humans could find solutions to these problems? The science officer's tentacles began moving in the pattern of growing excitement. It is possible, sir. Their approach to problem-solving is so different from ours that they might see solutions we have missed. Vashti felt his fear transforming into hope. The humans were dangerous, yes, but they might be the kind of danger that the galaxy needed. Sometimes you had to risk change in order to prevent stagnation. But there is still the political problem, Zekran pointed out. The Confederation Council will see the humans as a threat. They will want to contain them or eliminate them before they become too powerful. Then we need to convince the Council that humans are an opportunity, not a threat, Vashti said firmly. He activated his communication system and began composing a message to Confederation headquarters. But how do you explain to a galaxy-spanning government that a species they had dismissed as primitive could potentially solve all their greatest challenges? As he worked on his report, Vashti thought about Dr. Sarah Chun and her peaceful, curious crew. They had responded to first contact with mathematics and music, not weapons and demands. They had shared their technology openly instead of trying to hide it. They had shown trust and friendship. Commander, Zekran said suddenly, we are receiving another transmission from the humans. What are they sending now? Poetry, sir. They are sending us human poetry translated into mathematical equations and Sir, it is beautiful. Vashti looked at the equations flowing across his screen. Somehow, the humans had found a way to express art and emotion using pure mathematics. It was something no Confederation species had ever thought to attempt. They are not just technologically advanced, he realized. They are culturally creative in ways we never considered. He made his decision. In his report to the Council, he would recommend full partnership with humanity. Not careful observation from a distance, not gradual introduction over centuries, but immediate and complete cooperation. The galaxy needed what humans could offer, and humans needed what the galaxy could teach them. It was a risk. The Council might decide that humans were too dangerous and order their elimination. But Vashti believed that some risks were worth taking. He finished his report and sent it to Confederation headquarters with the highest priority coding. Within hours, the most powerful beings in the galaxy would be debating the fate of humanity. What do you think will happen? Zekran asked. Vashti looked out at the human ship again. Dr. Chun and her crew were still there, patiently sending mathematical poetry and waiting to see what the galaxy would decide about them. I think, he said slowly, that the galaxy is about to discover what humans are really capable of. And I think we are all going to be surprised by the answer. As if in response to his words, the human ship sent another transmission. This time it was a complete blueprint for a new type of faster-than-light drive, one that was more efficient than anything the Confederation had ever built. Attached to the blueprint was a simple message, a gift from humanity to our new friends. Among the stars, Vashti smiled. Whatever the Council decided, he knew he had made the right choice in making contact. The humans were going to change everything, and maybe that was exactly what the galaxy needed. The great assembly hall of the Confederation fell silent as Elder Krixthara rose from her crystalline throne. At over 10,000 years old, she was the oldest being in the galaxy, and her words carried the weight of countless centuries. Her ancient form glowed with a soft purple light as she addressed the emergency session of the Galactic Council. "Fellow beings," she began, her voice echoing through the minds of representatives from dozens of species, "we gather today to discuss a matter that could change the very foundation of our civilization. A species we have watched for generations has revealed capabilities that challenge everything we thought we knew about technological development." Around the vast circular chamber, beings of every imaginable form shifted nervously. Some floated in special atmospheric bubbles, others stood on multiple legs, and a few existed as pure energy contained in force fields. But all of them were focused on the holographic display showing the human ship. Endeavor. General Vekmur of the warrior caste slammed his armored fist on his console. "Elder, these humans are clearly a threat that must be eliminated immediately. They have advanced too far, too fast. In 2 cycles, they will be more powerful than any of us." "And what evidence do you have of hostile intent?" asked Ambassador Silvera of the Diplomatic Corps. Her 6 eyes blinked in the pattern that meant careful consideration. "All reports indicate they responded to first contact with peaceful mathematics and cultural exchange." "Peaceful now, General," Vekmur growled. "But what happens when they realize they are superior to us? What happens when they decide they no longer need the Confederation? History is full of young species that turned aggressive once they gained power." Minister Kalinara of the Science Division activated her own display. "Actually, General, that is not accurate. Of the 47 species that have achieved rapid technological advancement, only 12 became aggressive. The others chose cooperation over conquest." 12 is too many," Vekmur replied. "We cannot risk the stability of the galaxy on the hope that humans will be peaceful." Elder Krixthara raised one of her crystal appendages for silence. "Before we make any decisions, let us review what we know. Science Minister, please present your analysis." Kalinara's tentacles moved gracefully as she manipulated the holographic controls. The display showed detailed breakdowns of human technology and capabilities. "The human ship appears to be a research vessel, but it contains hidden technologies that are remarkable," she began. "Their quantum neural interface can analyze any technology and improve it within hours. They have already enhanced our scanning systems, communication arrays, and energy storage methods. Each improvement is practical and could be implemented immediately." "How is this possible?" asked Representative Yaktile of the mining guilds. "We have observed their species for generations. They should be centuries away from such capabilities." "That is the most interesting part," Kalinara replied. "Human brains appear to work differently than ours. Where we think in straight lines, they think in networks. Where we see problems, they see puzzles to solve. They approach technology not as a set of rules to follow, but as a canvas for creativity." The chamber erupted in discussions as representatives talked among themselves in dozens of languages. Elder Krixthara let them debate for several minutes before calling for order. "Commander Vashti," she said, "you have had direct contact with these humans. What is your assessment of their character?" The blue-skinned commander appeared on the central display, transmitting from his ship near the human vessel. "Elder, I have spoken extensively with their leader, Dr. Sarah Chun. She has been honest, curious, and generous. When they could have hidden their capabilities from us, they chose to share openly. When we asked them technical questions, they provided detailed answers. They seem more interested in learning from us than conquering us. But can we trust them? Asked Trade Coordinator Velpen. Their rapid advancement suggests they may have been hiding their true abilities for generations. No, Vashtai replied firmly. My analysis suggests they developed these technologies recently, possibly specifically for first contact scenarios. They were prepared for this moment, but not in a military sense. They were prepared to communicate, to learn, and to share. Representative Morgith of the warrior world stood up, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. Preparation suggests planning. Planning suggests they knew we were watching them. How long have they been aware of our presence? Unknown, admitted Vashtai, but does it matter? They could have developed weapons, built warships, or attempted to track down our hidden observation posts. Instead, they built communication systems and cultural exchange protocols. Elder Krixthara had been listening carefully to all the arguments. Now she spoke again, her ancient voice carrying wisdom earned over millennia. In my long life, she said, I have seen the rise and fall of many civilizations. I have watched as fear drove us to make terrible mistakes, and I have seen how hope led us to great achievements. The question before us today is simple. Do we choose fear or hope? With respect, Elder, General Thecamore interrupted, this is not about fear. This is about survival. These humans could destabilize the entire galaxy. Or they could save it, replied Chief Scientist Dr. Hectara, speaking for the first time. The ancient being rarely participated in political discussions, preferring to focus on research. When she did speak, everyone listened. Explain, Elder Krixthara requested. Dr. Hectara activated her own display, showing a list of major problems that had plagued the Confederation for centuries. The Great Barrier preventing us from exploring the galactic core, the quantum plague that destroyed 3 civilizations, the energy crisis threatening our gas giant colonies, the stagnation of our scientific advancement. For generations, our greatest minds have been unable to solve these problems. She paused, letting the weight of those failures sink in. But look at what humans accomplished in just one day of contact. They improved our technology in ways we never considered. They asked questions we never thought to ask. They found solutions to problems we thought were impossible. What are you suggesting? Asked Minister Kalanara. I'm suggesting that humans might be exactly what our civilization needs, Dr. Hectara replied. Not as subjects to be controlled, but as partners to be embraced. Their different way of thinking could provide solutions to challenges that have stymied us for millennia. The chamber erupted again, but this time the tone was different. Instead of fear and anger, the voices carried excitement and possibility. Representative Naukith of the Explorer Corps stood up. Dr. Hectara is right. We have been thinking like an old civilization, focused on preserving what we have rather than discovering what we could have. These humans think like explorers, like pioneers. They could remind us what it means to push boundaries again, but the risks, General Thecamore protested. All progress involves risk, Elder Krixthara replied. The question is whether the potential benefits outweigh the potential dangers. Ambassador Silvera accessed her diplomatic database. Elder, I have reviewed the behavioral patterns of all species we have contacted in the past 5,000 years. The humans display the lowest aggression indicators of any species we have encountered. Their first response to superior technology was not fear or hostility, but curiosity and friendship. They sent us poetry, added Cultural Minister Ashtel. Mathematical poetry? No species has ever done that before. It suggests a level of creative thinking that could benefit all of us. Chief Engineer Lockmar, who had been studying the human technical improvements, finally spoke up. Their faster-than-light drive design is revolutionary. If it works as they claim, it could reduce travel time between worlds by 60%. That would transform trade, communication, and emergency response throughout the galaxy. Elder Krixthara could see the mood of the chamber shifting. Fear was giving way to excitement as more representatives began to see the potential benefits of human partnership. "What does Commander Vashti recommend?" she asked. "Full partnership," Vashti replied without hesitation. "Immediate integration into the Confederation with full rights and privileges. Not as junior members to be gradually introduced over centuries, but as equals with valuable contributions to make right now." General Thekmar made one final protest. "This is madness. We would be giving unprecedented power to a species we barely understand." "No," Elder Krixthara corrected. "We would be offering partnership to a species that has already demonstrated wisdom, creativity, and peaceful intent. Sometimes, General, the greatest risk is not acting boldly enough." She rose from her throne, her ancient form glowing brighter. "I call for a formal vote. All in favor of immediate full partnership with humanity?" The voting displays around the chamber began to light up. Green lights for approval, red lights for rejection, yellow lights for abstention. The counting took several minutes as representatives from hundreds of worlds registered their decisions. When it was done, the results were clear. 67% in favor, 23% opposed, 10% abstaining. "The motion passes," Elder Krixthara announced. "Humanity is hereby welcomed as a full member of the Galactic Confederation, with all rights, privileges, and responsibilities that entails." The chamber erupted in cheers from most representatives, though some remained silent. General Thekmar stood up and left without saying another word. "Commander Vashti," Elder Krixthara continued, "you are authorized to inform the humans of our decision and to begin immediate integration protocols. Dr. Hektara, I want you to prepare a full scientific exchange program. Ambassador Silvera, begin drafting the formal treaties." As the emergency session ended, beings throughout the chamber buzzed with excitement and nervousness. They had just made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Back on his ship, Commander Vashti smiled as he prepared to contact Dr. Sarah Chun with the news. The humans had asked for nothing except the chance to learn and share. Now they would have the opportunity to do both on a galactic scale. He hoped they were all ready for what came next. 3 months had passed since the historic vote in the Galactic Council, and Dr. Sarah Chun could barely believe how much the universe had changed. She stood on the observation deck of the massive space station Synthesis, watching through the transparent walls as ships from dozens of different worlds came and went in a constant stream of activity. The station itself was a marvel that would have been impossible for either humans or aliens to build alone. It combined human innovation with Confederation resources, creating something entirely new. The hull used human-designed adaptive materials that could repair themselves when damaged. The power systems used alien energy sources channeled through human-improved distribution networks. Even the artificial gravity worked differently, using principles that neither species had understood before working together. "Dr. Chun," called Lieutenant Marcus Webb as he approached from the command center, "the morning briefings are about to begin." "Are you ready?" Sarah smiled. Marcus had adapted well to their new role as humanity's first ambassadors to the galaxy. He had learned to communicate with dozens of alien species and had become particularly good at working with the Zephyrian engineers. "I'm ready," she said. "What's on the schedule today?" 3 major projects," Marcus replied as they walked toward the conference room. "The Great Barrier Research Team thinks they have found a way through to the galactic core. The quantum plague treatment group has developed a cure that might work. And the gas giant colony energy crisis has been completely solved." Sarah felt a surge of pride. In just 3 months, human-alien cooperation had achieved breakthroughs that had eluded galactic science for centuries. The key had been combining human creativity with alien knowledge and resources. They entered the main conference room, where beings from across the galaxy were already gathering. Commander Vashti floated near the central table, his blue skin glowing with satisfaction. Dr. Hektara had traveled from the Science Council headquarters to observe the progress personally. Even Elder Krixthara appeared as a hologram, her ancient presence lending weight to the proceedings. "Good morning, everyone," Sarah said, taking her place at the head of the table. It still felt strange to be leading meetings with beings who were thousands of years older than her, but they had insisted that humans take leadership roles in the research projects. Let's start with the Great Barrier Project, she continued. Dr. Martinez, what have you discovered? Dr. Carlos Martinez, one of Earth's leading physicists, activated the holographic display. The image showed the massive energy field that surrounded the center of the galaxy, preventing any ship from reaching the core where the oldest and most mysterious civilizations were believed to exist. We've been working with the Altarian mathematicians and the Zephyrian engineers, Carlos began. The Confederation has been trying to break through this barrier for over 2,000 years using brute force approaches. But we asked a different question. What if we don't break through the barrier, but convince it to let us through? Elder Crixthera's hologram leaned forward with interest. Explain. The barrier appears to be artificial, created by some ancient civilization, Carlos continued. Human analysis suggests it's not just a wall, but a test. It's designed to keep out species that aren't ready to meet whatever is at the galactic core. Dr. Hectara's tentacles moved in the pattern of excitement. What kind of test? A test of cooperation, Carlos replied. The barrier requires simultaneous inputs from at least 12 different types of technology, each representing a different approach to science. No single species has ever developed that many different technological paths. But the Confederation has dozens of member species, each with their own scientific traditions. Commander Vashtai understood immediately. You're saying the barrier can only be opened by species working together? Exactly, Carlos said. And, now that humans are part of the Confederation, we have the 12th type of technology needed. Our adaptive quantum systems fill the gap in the pattern. The room buzzed with excitement. For millennia, the galactic core had been unreachable. Now, thanks to human-alien cooperation, the path was finally clear. When can we attempt passage? Asked Elder Crixthara. The test fleet is ready now, Carlos replied. We just need final approval from the Council. You have it, Elder Crixthara said immediately. This is a historic moment. Sarah turned to the next presenter. Dr. Kim, tell us about the quantum plague research. Dr. Jenny Kim, a biochemist from Seoul, stood up and activated her own display. The hologram showed microscopic organisms that seemed to phase in and out of existence. The quantum plague has destroyed 3 civilizations over the past 1,000 years, Jenny began. It's a disease that exists partially in our dimension and partially in quantum space, making it almost impossible to treat with conventional medicine. Almost impossible, noted Dr. Hectara. Right, Jenny smiled. The key breakthrough came when we stopped thinking of it as a disease and started thinking of it as a communication problem. The aliens in the room looked confused. Jenny continued her explanation. The plague organisms aren't trying to destroy their hosts. They're trying to communicate with them. But the communication is happening on a quantum level that most biological systems can't understand. It's like someone shouting at you in a language you don't know. The disease symptoms are actually the host body trying to respond to messages it can't comprehend. Commander Vashtai leaned forward. So instead of killing the organisms, we teach them to communicate properly, Jenny finished. Using human quantum neural interface technology combined with Confederation biomedical knowledge, we've developed a treatment that essentially gives the plague organisms a universal translator. The test results have been remarkable, added Dr. Hectara. Not only does the treatment cure the plague, but it actually enhances the host's immune system. The organisms become beneficial partners rather than destructive parasites. Elder Crixthera's ancient voice carried wonder. You have turned a galaxy-threatening plague into a beneficial symbiosis? That's right, Jenny confirmed. The treatment will be distributed to all affected worlds within the next month. Sarah felt tears of joy in her eyes. 2 of the galaxy's greatest problems had been solved in a single morning. She turned to the final presenter. Chief Engineer Rodriguez, what about the energy crisis? Maria Rodriguez, formerly of NASA's Propulsion Division, grinned as she activated the largest holographic display yet. It showed a gas giant planet surrounded by floating cities that were clearly struggling to maintain power. The gas giant colonies have been dying slowly for decades, Maria began. Their power systems couldn't generate enough energy to support large populations in such hostile environments. The Confederation's best engineers said it was an unsolvable problem. But humans don't believe in unsolvable problems, Commander, Vashtai said with amusement. Exactly, Maria laughed. We looked at the situation and asked why they were trying to generate power at all. The gas giants themselves are massive energy sources. The problem wasn't making power, it was collecting it. She manipulated the hologram to show new installations around the gas giant. These are quantum energy collectors based on human adaptive technology and Confederation material science. Instead of fighting against the planet's massive electromagnetic fields, they harness them. Dr. Hectara studied the display carefully. What kind of power output are you achieving? Each collector generates approximately 1,000 times more energy than the old systems, Maria replied. But here's the best part. The more collectors we install, the more efficient each one becomes. They create a network effect that amplifies the total output. The colonies now have more power than they know what to do with, added Commander Vashtai. They're actually selling excess energy to nearby star systems. Elder Krixthara was quiet for several moments, processing what she had heard. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of her vast age and experience. In 3 months, she said slowly, Human Confederation partnership has solved problems that have plagued our civilization for millennia. You have opened the path to the galactic core, turned a deadly plague into a beneficial symbiosis, and transformed dying colonies into energy exporters. Sarah felt the weight of the moment. Elder, we couldn't have done any of this alone. It required the knowledge, resources, and cooperation of dozens of species. That is precisely the point, Elder Krixthara replied. For too long, the Confederation has been focused on preserving existing knowledge rather than creating new knowledge. We became comfortable with our limitations. But humans have reminded us that there are no true limitations, only problems we haven't solved yet. Commander Vashtai swam closer to Sarah. Dr. Chun, there is something else we need to discuss. The success of these projects has attracted attention from beyond our galaxy. We are receiving signals from other galactic clusters asking to establish communication. Sarah's eyes widened. Other galaxies want to talk to us? To us, Vashtai emphasized. Human Confederation partnerships. Word has spread that our combined civilizations can solve problems that were previously impossible. Other galactic communities want to learn from our cooperation model. Dr. Hectara's tentacles moved in patterns of extreme excitement. This could lead to an intergalactic alliance. Cooperation on a scale never before imagined. But first, Elder, Krixthara interrupted gently, we must ensure that our own alliance remains strong. The next phase of cooperation will bring new challenges. Are humans ready for that responsibility? Sarah looked around the room at the beings who had become not just allies but friends. Creatures from dozens of worlds working together toward common goals. Problems that had seemed impossible were being solved through cooperation and shared creativity. Elder, she said firmly, humans are ready for whatever comes next. We've learned that the universe is vast and full of challenges, but it's also full of friends willing to help solve those challenges together. Then let us continue this great work, Elder Krixthara declared. The galaxy has been transformed by choosing hope over fear, cooperation over isolation. Let us see what the universe holds when we face it together. As the meeting ended and beings began returning to their various projects, Sarah remained on the observation deck, watching the ships come and go. Each vessel represented a different world, a different way of thinking, a different piece of the great puzzle of existence. Humanity had dreamed of reaching the stars for generations. Now they had not only reached them, but had found that the stars were full of friends waiting to share the journey. The decision to embrace the unknown had changed everything. And the adventure was just beginning. The future stretched out before them, infinite and full of possibility.